Okay, so we want to get into some more relational data. So far, we've just been talking about users, which is like that one table, but we're going to be adding, actually technically 3 more tables to look at, but we're going to be talking about just 2 of them. We're going to be talking about comments from users and then the boards that those users are posting comments to, right? So that's kind of the hierarchy of our data. We have message boards. On those message boards will be comments, and those comments will be posted by users. When I'm talking about a relational database, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This data relates to this one, that relates to this one. So a big key in how you kind of establish these relationships between these various different tables and records in these tables is through a mechanism called foreign keys. When I say foreign, it just means this key refers to something in a foreign table, right? A different table. That's what the foreign means in that particular case. And then it contains data that lives in another table. This first table here you should recognize, this create table users. By the way, these queries have already been run. You don't have to run these again. This ran as part of your big query that you ran previously. But we have this user table. This contains all the information about an individual user. We also created a boards table, which has a board ID, a board name, and a board description. Nothing here looks very surprising. There's nothing new about this that we didn't already learn about in users. But comments, this contains some interesting things. So let's kind of dig into this a little bit. Has a comment ID, that's a serial ID. We're aware of that the generated always is identity. The second thing that's interesting is a comment is always posted by a user, right? So if you're thinking about a Reddit message, right? A Reddit user posts a Reddit message. So those 2 things are linked, right? They're inexorably linked, that you must have a user that posts a comment. Every comment must have a user. So this user ID references, and this is an integer, right? So integer, int, these 2 things this is just the shorthand for that. This references the users table, and specifically inside of that table, it references the user ID, which is this thing up here. So this just happens that user ID here and user ID here are named the same thing. They don't have to be, right? That's just saying here in comments, this is going to be called user ID, but inside of the users table, we're referencing the user ID. So for example, if this was just called ID up here, not user ID, you would put ID right there. Now it's useful to call them the same thing. We'll see why actually a little bit, why that is, but you don't have to, right? You can call them different things. That's totally fine. Same thing with a board ID. Every comment is posted to a board, right? So you can't just post a comment out into the ether. If you're on Reddit, you can't just post to no subreddit. Every post goes into a subreddit. Every comment must go on a board. So that's where this board ID comes from. And it also references board ID from the boards table. And then a comment, which is text, right? It's not a varchar, so it's of 65,000 length or less. And then a timestamp of when you posted that comment. Okay, so let's talk about on-delete cascade. I have a comment, right? And let's say user BT Holt posted a comment to a board, and then later user BT Holt goes and deletes their account. What should happen to those comments? Because they were posted by a user, by default, if you don't say anything, so if I left off on delete cascade, it would just say, you can't delete this user account until you delete all the comments that they've deleted, right? So it won't let you delete anything if it has existing keys in another table. That can be useful, right? Maybe you want to do some special kind of cleanup, and you don't want to, delete a user account before you've deleted their comments. This one I'm saying on delete cascade. So whenever user gets deleted, go into the comments table and delete all of the comments that they've made. This just makes it really easy to clean up. All I have to do is delete a user account, and all of those comments just magically disappear. That's what on delete cascade does. And there's also on delete set null, I think is what it is. Yep, right there, on delete set null. What this will do is it'll say, it'll go through and delete the username. It'll just set it to null. And that might be a good thing too if you want to keep track of the comments, even if a user deletes their account. So you kind of have to decide what your desired behavior is. Oh, and the default action of like not allowing you to delete until you've deleted it yourself is called onDelete no action. It just means throw an error if they try and delete something from the users table that exists in the comments table.